Hello everyone, and welcome to this. Yes, this is, I guess, technically the final preview edition, at least, of First and 10. I am joined, of course, with my tag team partner, Matt Etchier. Did take a week off here.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to absorb a lot of information going into the Super Bowl. And now we're really here at the Super Bowl, and it's kind of hard to believe. Like, who would have thought in September, one, we'd make it to the Super Bowl with this show. I mean, I didn't know how long this show was going to last, and now we're here. I mean, just think back to September, Matt. There were 32 teams vying for the Vince Lombardi Trophy and that chance to go to New Orleans, and now we're down to 2 teams. And, of course, representing the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens, who, coincidentally enough, you and I both did pick to go to the Super Bowl, looking back at the footage here from episode 1. And the San Francisco 49ers representing the NFC. Now, I didn't think they'd go to the NFC, or to the Super Bowl. I thought they'd go to the NFC Championship game, but I had the Bears beating them, and you had the Packers beating the 49ers. So that also didn't work out for you in the real world of the playoffs, but hey, that's how the chips lay, you will, Tony. Yeah. So I mean, it's to me, I think for a Super Bowl, it's an exciting Super Bowl. I know a lot of people after the Ravens won the AFC Championship were like, this game's over. 49ers are I'm not even gonna watch the Super Bowl because the 49ers are just gonna roll all over Baltimore. And really, all I have to say to that is, bitch, please, because I think this is going to be a damn good football game. Because when you look at the two teams, basically similar records. San Francisco has that one tie in there, which throws a little bit of a notch into the wrench. Same family of coaches. Yeah. Their offense is kind of laid out a little bit the same way in terms of what they have as a power back, deadly receiving core, deadly linebacking core. I mean, it's really like two mirror teams are playing each other. So, I mean, that's all I have to say about the start of this game. Obviously, before we give you our picks, because this show could literally be 10 minutes at max, which for us would be a rare, we're going to try to break things down in terms of comparing, if I can say the word, key elements of this game in terms of key positions and what matchups to watch and stuff like that. So we're trying to give you a bit of more of an inside track going into the Sunday game. So I guess I'll start with you. What's the first thing you're really looking for here in this football game?
I mean, you gotta look at
overall opinions first, I guess.
Overall opinion, yeah. As you said, definitely this is gonna be an exciting game. I don't know if you can really say that San Francisco is going to run all over Baltimore. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. As you said, the two teams very mirrored, and they both have great running game, great receiving core, those sorts of things. I think where it really draws the line, though, where there's two big differences, would be in the quarterbacks. Wouldn't you agree, Jay?
I would have to say, but I think both quarterbacks have come through in the clutch here in the playoffs in both different capacities. I think Kaepernick obviously can do a lot with his legs, but I think a lot of people are underlooking his passing ability. I think he's actually been passing the football really, really well in both the Green Bay game and especially in the Atlanta game in the NFC Championship game. Whereas Joe Flacco has been really Joe Cool. He went in there, played very efficiently against the Colts on Wild Card Weekend, a comeback victory against Denver, and he was really looking like an elite quarterback against the Patriots in that second half. Things started a little rough for him, but hey, he took the abuse and got things together, cleared his head after halftime, and they took full control of that football game. So, I mean, quarterbacks is really an issue of this game because when you look at their stats, between the two quarterbacks, only one interception between the two. I mean, that's pretty impressive right there, and that's Colin Kaepernick throwing a poor pick, but then bouncing back in that Green Bay game. But that pick is also a pick 6, so that could be an interesting element here. But Joe Flacco, no interceptions for a guy that a lot of people said is the thing that was holding this team back was him. I think he's proving a lot of people wrong. I'm thinking the past 2 playoff seasons, Joe Flacco is that elite quarterback, and I think for sure if he wins the Super Bowl, we have to consider him an elite quarterback in the NFL. as you know, you win a Super Bowl, in my opinion, in this day and age, you have to be at least considered elite for a little bit of a period of time. Maybe not, you know, first ballot Hall of Famer like the Bradys and the Mannings of the world, but still, I think you got to give it up for Flacco because he's come through in the clutch. Kaepernick, I still think Kaepernick is, you know, a fantastic quarterback. I don't want to take anything away from Kaepernick. I just don't know. I think right now he's going to face maybe the best defense he's faced at all in these playoffs. Yeah. So that's going to be a little bit, plus only second year in the league. Obviously the biggest game, so he could face some serious jitters in the first couple series, and that could be really tough to combat because, you know, he got a break in his first playoff game with it being at home. And then he played a team that he had seen the previous week blow it. So basically, so he's now playing a defense that, you know, if they can get on you, it could be over. Sure. So, I mean, I don't know. What are your feelings on the quarterback duo here?
Quarterback
duel.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly what you were saying there. Flacco, I mean, everybody, including myself, were on him at the end of the season. He just seems to be a playoff quarterback, though. He comes into the playoffs, beats Indy, beats Denver, beats the Patriots, and really was pretty much perfect. 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he has a quarterback rating of 114.7 in the playoffs. That's tremendous. There's not much you can say there. He's got a great receiving core around him as well to help him out. And where I think these two quarterbacks, though, are very different is Flacco is much more of a pocket passer. Kaepernick is maybe a bit more of a scrambler. As you said, he does have an arm. He does have that big play ability. He's able to throw the ball down the field. Kaepernick is. But he's not necessarily as accurate yet as Flacco is in the pocket. Now, where Kaepernick can get you is with his legs and his scrambling ability, which is also tremendous. Kaepernick only has 3 passing touchdowns. Mind you, he's only played 2 playoff games. Flacco's played 3. But along with those 3 passing touchdowns, he also has 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's where he gets you, and as you saw against Green Bay, he can run the ball, and he ran the ball and got those touchdowns, and then Atlanta was like, well, we're going to stop Kaepernick from running. Well, then he threw the ball, and so it's really hard to compare the two quarterbacks because they're very different, but the one thing that I think everyone can agree on is that Flacco definitely has the more experience. I think they're both clutch quarterbacks, as Kaepernick has proven in his 2 playoff games, but Flacco, the experience, I don't think he's ever missed the playoff as a quarterback, and he's certainly done very well the last couple of years in the playoffs, so I gotta give Flacco a slight edge, but I mean, Kaepernick's been surprising us all season, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get surprised again.
I mean, yeah, the thing with Kaepernick is every time you put him in a situation where you're like, well, you know, he's good against, you know, maybe a team a little bit below San Francisco, but the big teams when they come in, you'd expect them to go topple all over him, but that's not really the case because look at Kaepernick. I mean, the Bears, he absolutely dominated and really kind of way ended their season in the confidence factor right there. And he's just really been, you know, clutch. And the thing, I guess, is an interesting thing of note is really one of the big breakthrough Colin Kaepernick games was against the Saints in New Orleans in this same stadium. So he's had the experience with the crowd noise going there. So he does know how to play in that stadium as well. The other thing is his defense came up big for him in that stadium. So Aldon Smith had a pick 6 on Drew Brees in that stadium too. So I think if you're going to go team and the environment edge, which there's so many things to look at because it's the Super Bowl. That's one thing you could look at. The Ravens hadn't been here this year. San Francisco has, and they had picked up a victory. So this stadium could be a good luck stadium for the San Francisco 49ers. And history has, because the last time there was a Super Bowl with the name San Francisco 49ers in New Orleans, they absolutely blitzed the Denver Broncos. I think they won that game 56-10. I mean, that game was over before halftime. You could have switched to The Simpsons and no one's been mad at you. But I hope we don't get a game like that. No. I really want the game to come down to the end, and I really think it can with the skill sets of both teams. Now, I agree with you to give Flacco just the edge, just because of his playoff experience and overall run so far in this playoffs. Just because maybe the extra game helps in that situation.
Yeah.
But I think the Giants that Flacco was slain in the number 1 and number 2 AFC seeds is, to me, a little bit more impressive than the Falcons and the Packers being knocked off by San Francisco and Colin Kaepernick. But I think the thing here is, what are these guys going to do? I mean, Flacco, he's not going to take off every play like Kaepernick has the ability. So the thing for him, though, he has weapons. He's got a weapon in the backfield named Ray Rice, who I think's been really clutch in the playoffs. As well, he's got a guy that has some Super Bowl experience in Anquan Bolden. He's come up on the losing edge, so he's going to want to redeem himself and prove that the move to Baltimore was the right one. And Torrey Smith has been Mr. Clutch for this team. Dennis Pitta is a big target for Flacco for the Ravens.
Tight end position.
So I think, when you look at the matchups here for who these men have the option of passing the ball to, I don't know. I honestly would say draw when you look at these two, because they're both basically the same. Rice and Gore are both power, pound you, beat you up backs. Yeah. The one thing maybe San Francisco can get the edge at the halfback position if they keep mixing it up with LaMichael James, because LaMichael James is a speedster. He proved that in the Patriot game in the regular season and in the NFC Championship game against Atlanta. And we haven't really seen... Baltimore mixed it up a little bit with their halfbacks, but I think you have to give the dual combination of power and speed over than, just two sets of power backs. Doesn't really work. But, when it comes to that receiving core, this is where it really gets tough for me. So I guess I'll let you start. What are your thoughts on the matchups in terms of comparing the teams at the receiving end of the football?
Well, yeah, you mentioned some of those great Baltimore receivers there. Also on San Francisco, you got Crabtree there, Vernon Davis, Randy Moss. Randy Moss kind of coming to the end there, but he's also a big play receiver,
than ever,
right?
Veteran.
Yeah, exactly. And so he definitely finds ways to contribute. It's tough. I really, in terms of the way I feel, I think Baltimore has the edge there. I just think Anquan Bolden is playing some of his best football. You watch him in that Denver game and against Patriots. I don't think, if he's not on the team, Baltimore, I don't think wins that game. Those games. That's how much of an impact he had on both of those. And I think Flacco has a lot of trust in him now. Right there, I just got to give it to him. But you can't underestimate this chemistry that Crabtree and Kaepernick have found. It's incredible. And then even in the Atlanta game, Kaepernick and Davis were hooking up. Mind you, Davis was wide open on a few of those, so I don't know how much you can read into that. But as you said, both these receiving cores, both are tremendous. I gotta give Baltimore just a little bit. Even Torrey Smith, like you said, I think he's a big player. He could end up being, I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore wins, he could be their MVP. Just because he can make those kinds of plays when you least expect them. And I think that's what he's all about. Ray Rice, he also can catch the ball out of the backfield. So San Francisco's defense is going to have to look out for that. So I give Baltimore's receiving core a slight edge, but the Crabtree-Kaepernick combination, it's going to be big. You just wait and see.
See, I'm going to give San Francisco the edge just more so on the real veteran presence of Randy Moss.
Right.
Randy Moss, I think, could be the deal breaker here. He's not only just a veteran, but he's got some Super Bowl experience, because if it wasn't for, maybe the greatest drive of our generation, Eli Manning, and to Tyree-style drive, the Patriots win that Super Bowl and go, undefeated, because he's the one that catches that touchdown. And him and Brady that year were phenomenal. You could not stop. They did set records, I believe. And Randy Moss is really the only, true Hall of Famer that Tom Brady's ever had to throw the ball. And you just saw how deadly it was when Tom Brady gets weapons. And he's become a real big thing, I think, for Kaepernick in the big games. I remember, if you remember the Patriot game, he was the first guy to score a touchdown for the 49ers. As well, I think the versatility of having Vernon Davis, who I think is in the playoffs has really become a big factor for Kaepernick, more so than Crabtree. Crabtree, you can tell Kaepernick and him have a good connection. You've seen it through the regular season, and I think the Ravens will be aware of that, but it's the stopping of Vernon Davis, I think. Vernon Davis at tight end he is a wide receiver that plays on the line, and that's the thing that I don't think the Ravens are gonna have a lot of things in there to stop him in particular, because while Moss and Crabtree and anyone else out there that they can potentially bring in are gonna be dangerous. I think what Vernon Davis brings, because of his athleticism, his ability to make plays, is just gonna be a little too much. So that's why I'm gonna lean San Francisco, at least with the receiving tight end core. At the halfback core, like I said, I gave San Francisco a slight edge just because of the mix of power and speed. But I don't want to discredit anyone here. It's not like I'm totally saying San Francisco's got the way better offense, so they'll win this game. I think it's honestly really, really close, but I think the Vernon Davis factor for offense for San Francisco, that's going to be the real key. How can the linebackers cover Vernon Davis?
Also, in terms of the run game for San Francisco, when you have that option game as well with Kaepernick, I mean, that's going to open it up too. So just kind of an accent on that point for you.
I think as well, but I think my thing with that, I think Baltimore's going to, learn from what Atlanta did and keep their linebackers in the box to prevent much of the Kaepernick scrambling, because that's what the Packers did not do and they got burned. Falcons kept their linebackers in the box, and Kaepernick only ran the ball twice and was forced to go aerial, and it paid off obviously. But
Gore and LaMichael also had really good games.
Yes.
So
I mean, I don't think there's any stopping any of the two true halfbacks of Rice and Gore. I think eventually they're going to wear down this line. They're all D-lines and linebacking cores. But speaking of defense now, I mean, that's what the saying is: defense wins championships. Exactly. And both these our teams have defenses that definitely can win you a championship. I mean, you got Ray Lewis coming back into this defense has been so huge. I mean, you can totally tell just the presence of him alone. Like, Ray Lewis could just stand there, pick the grass with his fingernails, and this defense would still be they would just feel a lot more confident to go out there and make plays. As well, when you have Lewis and Suggs back in the lineup, I mean, that's just huge. Those are two loaded guns ready to shoot and snipe onto Kaepernick and to Gore and to this receiving core. So when you look at that, you've also got to remember that the 49ers got a pretty good defense as well, with Patrick Willis, Aldon Smith, and plenty others out there in that secondary. Defense, I have to give Baltimore the advantage here. More so because they were able to force overtime, in a way, against Denver. And they held the Patriots this explosive
13 points.
To 13 points. Didn't let them score in the second half. So I don't want to say their defense is that much better, but I think, looking at the competition and, the presence and, just Ray Lewis realizing this is his last attempt at the Super Bowl has really elevated his game so much more. I mean, the first two games, lead tackler on the team, and this is for a man with still a torn tricep.
Yeah. So and a veteran.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of his exact age, but he is old.
He's been in the league since, I believe, 1997, 1998. So. I mean,
it's incredible.
I was finger painting. So let's be real. That's a long, long point in time. I think as well, the likes of Willis have been on this team a while, and they're going to need a lot from Aldon Smith in this game. But Aldon Smith, who is fantastic and just won the team MVP for San Francisco just the other day, we haven't seen too much of him in the playoffs. He's been very isolated and shut down by both the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. They did a good job. I don't expect Baltimore to not watch that footage and how they shut him down. So I'm going to expect, hopefully, for Smith to step his game up to bring the defenses into play for San Francisco a little bit more. But I still keep it with Baltimore having the big edge defensively.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, I mean, Ray Lewis there he's in the middle of that defense. just motivates everyone around him. And as you keep saying, win it for Ray, right? Win it for Ray. That is throughout that locker room. It's not just Ray who wants to win it. In his last season, everyone on that team wants him to win it. And I think that's an amazing thing. Baltimore, everyone knows they kind of fell into the playoffs. They weren't looking all that good, and then suddenly Ray Lewis was there, and they're in the Super Bowl. Like I really don't think if Ray Lewis doesn't come back, they're not in the Super Bowl right now. That's what's incredible. I mean, some other guys, Reed. Someone was saying you always have to know where Reed is on the field as a quarterback, because if you don't, he's gonna pick you off. He's gonna make you look silly. So he's a big play safety there, and you got to look out for him. As well as Suggs, as you talked about. Suggs is going to be on the defensive line. He's going to have to be able to contain Kaepernick and his scrambling. Not necessarily Kaepernick's in the read option game, but when he drops back and passes, and when Baltimore's coverage does have good coverage and Kaepernick has nowhere to throw it, Suggs has got to also make sure that Kaepernick has nowhere to run to. And that's going to be very key. On the other side of the ball there, San Francisco. Like I said, defense wins championships, and I think that's been San Francisco's motto for a long time. They've always had a very good defense. What they have to do, you saw this in both the Denver game and New England game with Baltimore, is their big play ability. And so San Francisco's secondary is going to have to stop those big plays, not let Bolden and Torrey Smith get behind them and really give them easy scores. Not necessarily easy scores, but quick scores, I guess, is more what I mean. So that's going to be a key for San Francisco. It's tough. I gotta go with San Francisco, I think, give them a slight edge. I know Baltimore has played against the Denver Peyton Manning offense and Tom Brady's, but I mean, San Francisco didn't play against any easy offenses as well. Their defense, they played really well against Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers and actually shut them down in the fourth quarter there, didn't let them come back, as well as against Matt Ryan and his explosive offense with those great wide receivers. So I think San Francisco's defense has certainly played against some good offenses, and I think they can have the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely potentially can. But I think when you look at the defense as a whole, forget the linebacking core, which I just broke down. But I mean, I think if you look at the safety position, I think Baltimore's got there with, the likes of Reed, compared to the likes of, and Bernard Pollard, I think, is a big player as well for Baltimore. When you look at the likes of San Francisco, I mean, their secondary is not too exciting. Their secondary may be a little overrated, I have to say. I think Atlanta kind of proved that. And Green Bay, in a way, proved that. I mean, you can't expect to just keep making adjustments at the half to turn things around in certain games. You have to start things off strong and keep them that way. You got to have make adjustments to tighten things for your defense to keep it, rock solid. But you can't just keep, getting blown away with your corners and your safeties and stuff like that. Plus, Dante Whitner for the 49ers, I don't think Dante Whitner's as good as a lot of people like. Trust me, I've seen the man play in Buffalo. So, I mean, he has the ability to get in your face, but I think that could cost the team here, because this team seems pretty composed for Baltimore offensively. Yeah. So I think if Whitner starts spouting off at the mouth, there could be some dumb, selfish penalties here, which you don't want to give Baltimore a 1st and 5 or an automatic first down for some stupidity like that. So I think the veteranness of the Ravens defense overall was why I lean with them. And then there's, of course, the element where we rarely talked about it on this show, but it's a Super Bowl, and during our lifetimes, it's actually come down to this, and that's special teams. Yep. Now, I'm not going to start first with the kicking part of it, because I think we saved that for just a moment here, but special teams is a big part of this game, because if both defenses show up and the offenses struggle, both teams have an amazing guy to take the ball back to the house. The Ravens got Jacoby Jones, who they got over from Houston last year, and that's paid off very well. while the 49ers have a man who started the last season off looking like he was going to set all these kind of records in Ted Ginn Jr., but Ted Ginn we haven't seen too much of returning the football to that explosiveness, but I'm not going to take that against him. I think if ever there's a time to show up and be, the Ted Ginn of old, why not do it at the Super Bowl? You got the world watching, hey, break up a couple punts, and that could be the one thing. So, in a way, I lean as a draw, but I think we've seen Jacoby Jones in big game situations take the ball back to the house. I think we remember the Pittsburgh game. Really, his punt return was what kind of iced the game early on, because Baltimore's D looked pretty sloppy after the Byron Leftwich run in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lean Baltimore on special teams a little bit in terms of returning the ball. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I agree with that. In terms of Ginn of old, he looked great, but remember in playoffs last year, he fumbled the ball.
That was not him. That was Kyle Williams.
That was Kyle Williams?
Kyle Williams fumbled the footballs.
My bad.
And he's now out for the year, so...
Okay, so then there you go. But yeah, I got to give it to Jacoby Jones. He's one of the most explosive returners that we've seen in a while. And you see every time he has the ball, it just looks dangerous. If he can catch a block or two on Sunday, you got to look out for him. The return game, definitely, you got to go with Baltimore. I just think even just in terms of depth wise, in special teams, Baltimore just has the better personnel.
Yes, I would agree with that. And then it comes down to something that if it may have to, and that's the kicking. Because we've seen plenty of Super Bowls now recently come down to the last play, a field goal for the win, more so the Patriot Adam Vinatieri days and stuff of that nature of the original dynasty. But, I mean, two sets of kickers here. Going in two different directions. Baltimore's Tucker, I mean, he's got to be on cloud nine. He kicks a field goal to win so they can go to the AFC Championship game. And, it pays off for why they cut Billy Cundiff to bring in this rookie. We have to remember he's a rookie kicker, folks, and he's been playing pretty fantastic this year. Whereas David Akers, I don't know what has happened to David Akers. The Karate Man himself... he needs to take a bow out of the game, I think, at this point in time after this. I mean, he's just been so shaky for this team. There's been plenty of times where he could have won the game for the team. Mostly the battles with the Rams this year. I mean, David Akers was called upon, and he's blown it. So there's that. And 2 weeks ago now, in the NFC Championship game, a field goal would have been huge for the 49ers going into the half, and he donks it off one of the uprights. So, I mean, David Akers' confidence going into this game may be at an all-time low for any kickers, but because your confidence is at an all-time low, I mean, something happens, and you just find that mojo in the Super Bowl. Hey, we've seen it happen a million times in different positions. I know kicking's a little bit of a different world, but anything can happen in the Super Bowl. So, again, starting with you, who do you like kicking-wise special teams?
Well, I mean, one thing you got to remember with kickers is weather's a big deal and wind, and so they're going to be indoors.
Yes.
So I think that definitely helps Akers, even though he did miss one last week or a couple weeks ago in a dome. So, he hit the upright. So I don't know if that necessarily helps him that much, but I know Tucker he was in
wind.
Yeah. And so I know he can hit it in bad weather, so I'm pretty sure he'll be fine in a dome. Akers, I mean, you gotta say that Akers has the range though. He kicked a 65-yarder.
63. He tied the NFL record on week 1 in Green Bay.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's pretty impressive. But as you said, has not been very good as of late. I would have to give that to Baltimore as well, and say Mr. Tucker has the edge as a rookie over the vet. Surprising to hear, especially with kickers, but I have a lot more confidence in him than I do in Akers right now.
As well, because David Akers' his history in the clutch, really not Mr. Clutch, because if you remember this last game as an Eagle when they were in the playoffs, David Akers missed 3 field goals in a game Philadelphia could have easily won, and he just totally missed these field goals, and it ended up for him being released from the team and going now to San Francisco. And I don't think the one thing 49er fans wants to hear is 6 seconds left. That's a 45-yard field goal. Here comes David Akers for the. No. They do not want to hear the name David Akers for the win because, I mean, Christ, some of them will try to get a charter, a Concorde, to go out there and kick it for themselves in the Niner Nation out there. But I feel we've done a strong job here breaking all the main position aspects of this game down.
Yes.
And now it comes down to this. The final pick'em of First and 10, Season 1. Your season's it's coming on DVD soon, so if you want, I mean, you can send us some money. We'll burn you seasons. But the final pick of Season 1 of First and 10, the Super Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Who do you like in Super Bowl 48, I believe it is? It is Super 48, right?
I believe so. You know better than me.
Damn it, man.
It's obviously both these teams have had a big playoff journey here.
Super Bowl 47.
Is it 40? Okay, there you go. So it's here from Jay. It's Super Bowl 47. Both these teams look great. Like I said, I think it's going to be a very exciting Super Bowl. The deciding factor for me on this is just that I don't think Kaepernick has played a defense as tough as this yet, and I don't have that foresight to think that he's going to be able to necessarily overcome it at this point in time. He's only played 2 playoff games and he's pretty young. So in that case, and I think Baltimore matches up really well on every other facet. So I gotta go with Baltimore in terms of this matchup. But don't take that to the bank or anything, folks, because I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong. But this man's putting a gun to my head, and so I got to pick. So I got to say Baltimore.
I don't see any guns, but I mean, we do a show every other week now. Before I get mine, you have a potential score prediction here, because we both think this is going to be a close game. Do you have a potential score?
Oh, potential score. Okay. Well, I think it's going to be definitely low. I'm going to say 21-17 for Baltimore.
21-17? All right. I think really it comes down to an element that's just a little something it's either just fate or it's not going to happen, but I think it's the whole win it for Ray mentality. I think there's just no way of stopping that drive for Baltimore. I think San Francisco's honestly a team we can see in the Super Bowl for years to come.
Yeah.
I think it's just not their time right now. I think it's Baltimore's time. I think it's time for Joe Flacco to prove everyone wrong. I think it's time for Ray Lewis to go out as a champion, and what better a guy to go out on top than Ray Lewis, who ever since he won that Super Bowl, I mean, they'd come so close plenty of times, and now to finally have that. Plus, it's time for Ed Reed to win a Super Bowl. I mean, we don't remember, people are not forgetting that Ed Reed's been in the league a long time now too, and his first crack at the can, I really hope he gets it. Hope Terrell Suggs gets it. Bolden. And plenty of those guys. I hope they can finally get that Super Bowl. But the win it for Ray thing, I think, is just something that's just going to be too much. I personally could see the 49ers in the Super Bowl next year. I think they're just they're on a different level. And first of all, their division, in their division, and then getting through the conference. I mean, it's not easy, but I think they have the coach and
an edge.
Yeah, they have that. So, and plus they're young, and that's just going to be a huge thing. Who knows with Baltimore? I think it's their time. They better do it now because Flacco ain't getting any younger. Ray's not going to be there. They're going to need Suggs and Reed aren't going to be there that much longer. Many are even saying Ed Reed maybe leave Baltimore after the Super Bowl no matter what. So that'd be an interesting element there. But yeah, it's Baltimore's time. So my thing is Baltimore will win the Super Bowl. I think it'll be a little bit more scoring than what you're saying. Yeah. I think both teams will be able to get in the end zone. I just somehow see both defenses being on the edge a little too much, and they'll just make a mental break, and a couple plays and some big plays will happen. So I'll see this one, especially with San Francisco's offense and the offense we saw in the NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game for Baltimore. So my final score is the Baltimore Ravens 31, San Francisco 49ers 27. Ooh. So a close game. I don't think both you and I obviously don't see this game being a blowout like many out there on the worlds of Twitter and Facebook. Even though they say they're not going to watch the Super Bowl, you are. Yeah. I mean, what the hell else are you going to watch on Sunday? I don't even think there's anything other interesting. Maybe you can watch Masterpiece Theater or something like that. I don't know. But you got to check out the Super Bowl. I'm really excited for the whole game, and even the halftime show. I think the halftime show is going to be fantastic with Beyonce.
A little bit of Beyonce. Yeah.
Destiny's Child reunion.
Oh.
Alicia Keys to sing the anthem. And I think that could be actually something you'll see on iTunes the next day. I think she's going to do a bang-up job with that song. So, that's our rundown here of the Super Bowl, our, I guess, media day of the Super Bowl.
Oh.
I mean, really, that's all we can do. So for Matt, I am out. Peace.